Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
Today I'm going to surprise Irene because she doesn't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I said, just let me know what we're talking about.
So she's going to find out right now.
Right.
You know, there's been a number of channels that we watch on YouTube that we've watched for many, many years that have all been going to create new homesteads. So they're moving from a homestead that they'd created to a new homestead.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a good time to kind of have a little bit of a chat about our impressions of the advisability of doing that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what you need to know when you're going to be starting a homestead.
Right. Would I do it if I was 20 years younger? Or if I maybe won the lottery and had somebody else to do the heavy labor?
You know, building a homestead from scratch in raw land is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've watched a bunch of people. Let's Cog Hill Farms.
Mm-hmm.
Jason has been working on building their new homestead. They had a, what, 8-acre homestead?
Something small. I think it was about 8 or 10 acres.
And now they've moved on to a much bigger place.
Right.
And they've been building a pond, but he didn't build the pond. He
paid somebody else to build that pond.
Mr. Greg, I think.
Yes, Mr. Greg.
Came in and he did the bulldozer work and did the excavator work, and he's been doing a lot of the earthworks.
Right.
So, you know, if you're going to go start a new homestead, it's like for us. We've lived here full-time for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, 17 years next week. It's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I'm watching the stuff that he's doing, and it's fascinating because they changed. They're in the same state. I believe they're in the same county.
Right.
But they've changed from a homestead that was small, like we said, 8 or 10 acres, and down in a gully. I mean, really, they had flood problems down there.
Right.
So they were constantly dealing with water mitigation, you know, redirecting things so it wouldn't wash things out, trying to put down, you know, sod to prevent erosion, all kinds of stuff like that. And they moved to the top of a hill somewhere. Now, it's not a complete hill. I mean, but it's fairly flat, and then it goes down.
Yeah.
And we said, our first response to that was, as a gardener, I can tell you that he might as well have moved to a different planet. The soil is a different type than what he had before.
His water pattern is way different, for sure.
Way different. And we've watched him a couple of times doing stuff, and we're like, if he doesn't water that, it's going to die. You know.
But you know, the thing is that
they're catching on, but it's the catch-on part that can really bite you.
And no matter how much experience you have gardening, you're going to get caught with those kinds of things when you change locations. Now, not only did you change from a smaller place to a bigger place,
Right.
he went from a sheltered environment that
Right.
had a lot of trees, and they'd come up with a system that worked for them for everything on their homestead. They
Right.
had goats and chickens and all manner of things, and that all worked because they had ways of controlling them. They had places to put them, and they knew what they were doing, and they knew how to feed them and all those kinds of things.
Right.
When you move to a new homestead, guess what?
Oh, it's a whole different planet. I mean, they went from a very shaded area, shaded to the point where they actually had trouble, like, growing a garden. They had to take some trees out. And they had to be concerned about trees coming down in storms, to being, I mean, in terms of sun exposure, it's spectacular. I mean, if you wanted to do solar there, wow, it'd be fantastic. But, you know, they're on the grid, so that's not something they're interested in. But all of a sudden, they have to provide shade for the animals. And they have to think about things overheating. Whereas, you know, that just, I mean, it's Mississippi, so it's hot. But at least by our standards. Alabama, sorry. I always think he's in Mississippi. But same darn thing. Hot, sticky, you know, bugs, you know. I mean, we're hot, we're not sticky, and we do have bugs. Hey, you know.
Well, you know, the thing is, this also provides them with new content for their channel, which is great.
Yeah.
Now, there's another group that we've watched for a number of years, and that's Homesteady.
Here in Pennsylvania now.
And they started off in Connecticut,
Yep.
where they had a small farm.
Again, about 8 or 10 acres, I think, if it was even that much.
Something about that.
And again, it was wedged in to like a valley.
And they moved to her parents'
Her
farm.
family's, not just her parents' farm. It was her family. So it's when you move to family property, it can be a different thing. And from our perspective, we were seeing, based on what they were saying, that they were going to be running the farm, and it was going to be theirs. Well, that's not the case, and I kind of wonder if they got the real story when they, you know.
Yeah, you can
and
never tell.
It's none of our business, to be honest. But the reality is, they moved there. They wound up in a situation where they had all the runoff from this big, gigantic hill flying through their chicken yard.
So Jason from Cog Hill Farms and Austin from Homesteady
Right.
had the same problem. They had large amounts of water running downhill right into their property.
Right.
So, you know, Austin has experience doing.
And even better, he's got a
Earthworks.
dad who's a professional earth mover.
So
Hey, you know, it doesn't get much better.
they gained some experience with larger scale animals.
Right.
They've tried several different kinds of cows, and they
Right.
know what they like and what they don't like. But one of the things that Kay said in a recent show was that you're not going to make money on your cows, and it's not going to save you money either.
Right.
So that was something that they learned the hard way. You know, if you're city born and city bred and city raised, there's a lot of things you don't necessarily know how to do.
Right. Well, and it depends on what you're doing. They were doing milk animals. And purebred milk animals can be worth quite a bit of money. But if you're raising any and keeping any for yourself, the only way you might get ahead is if you're doing what I call value-added products. So if you have goats, for instance, because although cows sound nice, that's a whole other can of worms.
It's a lot of milk, no matter what kind
It's
of
a lot
cow
of
you
milk,
get.
and it's a lot more hay, because hay, they're bigger animals. They simply require more input. There's a goat can, I mean, if you look at where goats came from in the world, they came from scruffy places in like the Middle East and stuff like that. It's believed that the original goats came out of maybe Turkey or someplace up in the mountains there. And they can live on things that, 99% of the rest of the ruminants would drop dead on and starve to death. But where you make money with something like that is what they call value-added products. So if you can make goat cheese, like when we lived in Maine, one of the things we used to pick up down at the local farmer's market every couple of weeks would be fresh goat cheese. Because all of a sudden you take your milk, you've got enough for yourself, so you've got all the milk you need. Okay, what else are you going to do it? Well, you're not going to make butter with goat milk unless you have very specialized equipment, which is usually not worth it, to be honest, for most people. So yeah, you've still got goat's milk. What are you going to do with it? Well, if you can make cheese, all of a sudden, a few cups of milk can produce something that you can charge bucks for. I mean, back then, I think I was spending $6 or $8 for a pack of goat cheese. It's artisan, it's flavored, it's this, it's that.